Good afternoon. It is 5:30, September 21st. And I am, going to let the sun rotate here for a second and you can watch all the different activity, see how many CMEs and players you can count while I do some housekeeping. First of all, if you are trying to join a Facebook group, you have to answer the questions. We have a high amount of scammers that try and attack our groups every time we have a big event. And it's very hard to tell if it's a real profile because they steal normal people's profiles. So we ask security questions to try and weed them out. If you don't answer them, we just delete your request. So you have to go back and request and answer the questions. It's for everybody's safety. We don't want anybody sending somebody bad messages or getting somebody's personal information and hacking something important. And we do have doctors and lawyers and important people in infrastructure in our groups, and we want to protect them. As much as humanly possible, we want to protect them. Number two, we're going to talk about a lot of people have said, oh, I didn't see the auroras. Where were they? All I saw was this grayish glow. Well, there's a reason all you saw was a grayish glow. And here's why you see a grayish glow. We have cones, and these cone cells, as you can see in full spectrum color. You see how they're red and they're green and they're blue. They see all the colors in full spectrum at daylight and bright light. But when we're out at night, our brains don't really have the time to process color fast enough if there was something attacking us. So it's a survival skill that we see in black and white, and the rod nerve cells see at night. And you can see here, they're black and white in dim light so that we notice movement quicker. So if we were back in, the dark ages and we were outside and we didn't have light like we do today and a saber-toothed tiger was jumping out to eat us, we would see it moving. It's a survival skill. So when you're looking for auroras, they look like black and white or a grayish glowing cloud. And if it's in the north and it's low on the horizon, sit and watch it. If it has up and down lines in it, then it's the auroras. If it has an arch, if it bends upward, then you know it's the auroras, because clouds don't generally form an arch. Okay? Clouds don't arch. If it stays in one place for a long period of time and doesn't drift away, then you know it's the auroras, because clouds drift away, auroras don't. If it's moving, if you sit and watch it for a few minutes and you see it dance sideways, if you see the up and down lights moving, or if you get horizontal lights, shimmers that raise up off the auroras and over your head, and it looks like reflection off water moving in the sky, then you're looking at the auroras. They're just going to be in black and white until it gets to be about a KP6. And then you'll get very pastel-y colors. And I say that conservatively. I know everybody's going to go, well, I can see color before that. Yeah, those of us that have done it a long time know what we're looking for. We've trained our brain to fill in the color. Because we've done this for so long, we know that's going to be green and that's going to be pink. And we know, and we've trained our eyes to see better at night because we do more of it. Most people spend so much time looking at computer screens, spend so much time in daylight looking at TVs, looking at artificial light, that they do not have good night vision. Night vision is something you have to develop. The only way you can develop it and get more of it is to spend more time in the dark away from artificial light. So there is tip number 2 for everybody that was saying, I didn't see the auroras. Get out religiously a couple times a week in the dark. Spend time with your lights out. Turn off your computers more. Turn off your television more. Develop your night vision. Then you'll start seeing at KP4, KP5, I've even seen color at KP3 because I spend so much time in the dark that I have better night vision than I do daylight vision. So spend the time looking. Now, onto our sun real quick. You'll notice here we have a tremendous amount of activity bursting around this region that's rotating in. We've got something building up here and it's feeding off this. These two are connected now. And this seems to be feeding into this, the energy feeding into this now. And this has grown and separated over the last couple of days. Now this region over here that's rotating in is what is kicking off our M-class flares and a lot of the CMEs. It is not these regions down here. It is this region right here. And it went from beta to beta gamma. And then the back sunspot, 3435, went gamma delta or beta delta yesterday. And it stayed beta delta. The front spot dropped back down to beta, but it has moved away from 3435. So 3435 and 3538 are more separated. They're farther apart, but 38 has gotten 11 umbras or 11 spots in its grouping now. And it is starting to reform that inner-wrapped magnetic polarities that were causing it to be beta gamma. It's just starting to redevelop that this afternoon. So I look for that to be Earth-facing tomorrow. The next day it should be out of Earth-facing and it should be in that eruptive tick. It should tick into that eruptive zone. And we should have 3441 ticking into that eruptive zone today. So, and you can see that is this region right here, and you can see it is picking up energy and it is kicking off flares and it is becoming more eruptive as it ticks out of Earth facing. So let's go on to CMEs. What am I seeing? I'm going to back this up until the 18th, 17th, and 18th. Now, looking at the numbers right here, this is your highest possible wind speed. You are seeing some 7s, some 8s down here with what hit us the other night, but you're seeing a lot of 3s, a lot of 200s, a lot of 400s, 200s, with maybe a 1400 thrown in there for measure once in a while, but then it drops back down to 200, 400, 300, couple of 500 spots, then it's back down to 200, a big one, and then it drops back down into these smaller numbers. Okay, through the 19th we've had pretty low numbers. Okay, but as the afternoon went on the 19th, we're starting to get 600, 900. Okay, here's a really slow one. But then we're back up to 600, 600, 300, almost 400. There's a 400 halo hit. Let's look at that one. That is from 35 or 3435. The thing to look at here is it's a 90-degree hit, but it is pushing the plasma wind out at the 180. So we have wind moving all the way around the disk right now. That's what's keeping us slightly elevated. So we have coronal hole stream in this for the next couple of days, and these solar storms are going to pick up that coronal hole wind or stream and push it. And here you can see it pushed there is some density to that, and it is pushing it. Oh, why aren't you? Okay. Now we're getting up here. 600, 600, 600, 600. Oh, we got a slow 500. We're back up in the thousands range. But we're getting more consistent as we're getting it coming from 34, 35, 34, 36. We're getting consistently bigger wind speed numbers, consistently stronger, denser plasma. It's going to be, if we get a direct hit, a bigger, stronger storm. We got a couple small hits, but here we've had, here's a partial halo. This is coming from 34, 35. It is far enough. This looks like it's going away from us. If it came from 34, 35 and not 34, 40, then it's sitting from over here, and that's going to be a really wide flare or CME. That could come all the way over to here, which would mean it would have an earth or a potential of an earth facing component, even if it's blown out sideways. And you can see down here, there is something moving plasma all the way around the lower half. So there is wind all for more than 3/4 of the halo. So I look for this to be a stronger hit, and that will come in. This is at, okay, we got to subtract 4 hours. So it's going to be 1200. This is coming in about noon on the 21st today. So that's going to come in potentially as soon as noon on the 22nd, into noon on the 23rd, maybe into the 24th. It takes 24 to 36 hours. So we have that window. Oh, excuse me, 23rd into the 24th. So 23rd, the afternoon of the 23rd, into the overnight hours and into the afternoon of the 24th. You want to look for this one to come in. And we don't have the forecast out for that day to know the timing for that yet. Now we have our sunspot region here. This is a look at 3441. You can see here it is tapped. The polarities are tightly woven in between. It is a beta class. We have 4 different umbras in here. 1, 2, 3. I guess they're calling that one umbra 4. But this is a 4 umbra. I don't know why they're calling that number of sunspots. I guess they're calling this one spot, this one spot, this one spot, and that one spot. And they're calling this a grouping. So this is one spot, this is one spot, this is one spot, and that's one spot. But you can see here that this umbra right here has positive and negative inside one umbra. You can see here we're starting to get positive and negative in that umbra. A little bit here too. This one not as much, but it's still there. This is eruptive and gaining eruptivity as it's ticking into that outgoing limb in that eruptive zone. Remember, as soon as it ticks out of earth facing until it's around the outgoing limb is our eruptive zone. So this is now at the point it can wreak havoc. So we're going to go back up here. Let's look at 39. 39 is 2 spots. It's a size of 30. It's not very big, not very eruptive, not giving it much of a potential. Going back up here to look at our monster. Yesterday, this spot right here was much smaller, and it was right over here where this yellow was. It was tightly wrapped into this other spot. It has spread out considerably, and it has gained considerable umbra here and sunspots, and now it is starting to get that inner wrapped polarities and starting to develop the polarities that are wrapping around each other, and this will become more eruptive in the next couple of days. This one is still beta delta, meaning this can be a monster. This is fully capable at 60%, and this is the one that is continuing to kick off M+ flares and major CMEs. 60% chance, down slightly from yesterday, but we're in the quiet zone, okay? It's in that quiet zone coming into Earth facing. We know it quiets right here. Every sunspot does. It's gone through in the last year. It quiets right here as it's entering that magnetic connection between Earth and the sun. As it gets out of that direct connection at center disk is when it starts to go crazy. So it's got 2 days before it's really going to start getting nuts. But right here is the sun group I look for to drop something significant later this week. And I do look for this to continue to grow, morph, and change. And yesterday, and I don't know, you really can't see it. Yesterday, there had been a loop right here, and there was a lot more yellow or negative polarity here, and this green wasn't here, and we're starting to see some positive polarity, and it actually is pulling away from a little bit, or one of the spots is moving away from 3440, because 3440 was much closer yesterday, but it's starting to push it away, get closer to 3431 or 41, and it's starting to grow in size. 36 or 3436 is beta class. It is out of reach. It is not going to do anything for us. Likewise, 3437 really isn't going to do much for us now. It is on the outgoing limb far enough. Unless it's a horizontal or a long ways storm horizontally, it will not hit us. 3438. Let's see where that one is. 3438. Where is that one? Oh, that one is this one, 3438. I'm drawing a blank there. 3438, this has, like I said, this has grown in size. It is continuing to grow in size, and it's continuing to start to grow in complexity back into the, because early this morning, the negative polarity was separated from the positive polarity, and it was all setting up here. Now it's starting to swirl and wrap into itself. It is producing C-class flares, and I look for this to get snarly in the next 2 days. 3439 is behind it and lower. It is not much. 2 sunspots, not a very big size. It is not really doing much, but that can change. It could get into that Earth, that active zone and go crazy. Now, we have one spot right here, and this is pulled away from considerably, a good distance from 3435 overnight. It is changing shape a lot right back in here, and I look for possibly something to develop here. It was a beta class yesterday, I believe, or the day before. It is down to an alpha class. This is morphing in shape and size quickly. So as it gets closer to center disk, as 3435 becomes more and more energized, I look for this to get more and more energized and to morph and grow into it as well. And 3431 was shrinking in size and density. Still has 4 umbras here, and it is capable of producing a solar flare and CMEs. And again, as it gets in there behind 34, 35, gets into that eruptive zone, this can continue to grow and shape and morph. It is growing. It shrank. It's reorganizing. It's changing its shape. Everything is moving so rapidly right now that you can come back hour after hour after hour and these will have changed shape. They are moving that fast on the surface of the sun right now, and the closer they are to 34, 35, the faster they're moving and the faster they're changing shapes. So you want to be watching, because one of these could take off and go crazy with no warning. Now, looking at our forecast right now, we are looking the 22nd into the 23rd to have the spike. Okay? And they're saying it's going to take off midday, and then it's going to happen early evening. And I do not agree with this part of the forecast. I don't think it's going to drop below a 3. I don't think it's going to drop this quickly. I think there is enough out there moving around the halo that it will at least keep us bumped up a little higher. And there's just enough of these fast moving CMEs mixed in there. I think there's going to be enough wind out there that it's going to boost some of this stuff faster than what they think it will be. So I look for this to be a little bit different on the tail end here and maybe get a spike in the early morning hours. We do not have what's forecast for the 23rd into the 24th or the 24th into the 25th yet. But I do look for more activity to happen then. But I think our big story is going to be here between the 27th, 28th, 29th is when they're saying our big chance is 30th. And maybe into the 31st, they're saying it's going to drop off. But given how big these solar spots are and how active the sun is getting and how supercharged the sun is getting right now, I look for activity to be at least close to a KP3 most of the week. And I would not be surprised at all if we get a really, really big monstrous storm at the tail end of the week when 35 and 38 are in that eruptive zone. I look for it to drop something big, and I'm praying to God it is not the kill shot at this point. That is getting that much electrical activity to that, you know, we want to pray it's not the big one. We really don't need the big one that's going to put us in the dark ages for 10 years. We don't want it. Moderate. Give us a KP9, X class, 9, maybe a 10, not more than a 20, maybe a 40 at the maximum, but we really don't need anything that big. We don't want our power grids taken out. We don't want our satellites cooked. We like our cell phones. So, say your prayers. Pray for good weather. Looking at our forecast right here, again, I don't agree necessarily with this. I think it's going to air a little higher than that. I think we're going to at least stay in the KP3 range for most of it. Might drop midday down into the 2 range, but I look for this to be more like a KP3 or higher going into the overnight hours onto the 24th. We've had some partial halo hits. I look for the next couple of days, 24th, 25th, to be more of KP3, KP4, KP5. Because enough of that is close enough to Earth basing, it's going to start grazing us. They have changed our west now. And I can put this into play while I'm talking. You can kind of watch the umbral spiral, what they think will happen. They have downgraded this spike in plasma to be a little bit less, but left it here. But this peak right here going into the evening on the 24th, they're predicting a spike in plasma. At the same time, we're going to get a real big spike in wind. It's going to be an onset. If that comes close enough to dark, you want to be sitting there. You don't want to be waiting. You don't want to run out to try and catch it because you're going to miss it if you do. So before dark, you want to be sitting at your location at sunrise, at sunset. Be at your location at sunset on the 24th. It is not uncommon, as the sun is just very low in the sky and starting to go down, for you to see auroras during daylight. I have seen it a couple of times. I have gotten auroras during daylight hours. It is possible to do that. So you want to be sitting at your location as the sun goes down. Then it is predicted to have a wind. They've got it going out as a wind through the 24th or 25th and 6th. They've got it as a very low wind, and I think it's going to be faster because the late the 19th through the 20th, that wind started picking up and it was pushing harder. It was, more 500s, 600s, 900s, few of thousands. It was faster. I think that's going to increase that wind speed a little bit faster in there, and we might have a chance for at least some sudden onsets within that time period where that wind spikes up faster for a period of time. We call those sudden onsets, where all of a sudden it just goes crazy for about an hour as a fast-moving wind speed hits us. We aren't out past that. I don't know as I agree with this. We're not going to get plasma. I don't agree with that. I think we're going to get more than what they're thinking we are. They're not predicting much at all. I do think it's going to be a little higher than that because there's been some very dense storms that have a potential of throwing some very dense stuff at us. It's just very hard to tell whether it's moving down in a way, sideways in a way, at us in a way. As you can see from this emerald spiral, they're saying, oh, it's going to miss, it's going to miss. But if they're wrong, even by a few hundred miles coming off that sun, it makes a drastic difference and it'll be a direct hit. So you want to watch that and plan that this is how it works. They aren't always right. NOAA is right about 50% of the time. So you look at the CMEs, you look at the directions they were moving, you look at the wind speeds they were and say, oh, well, yeah, there's going to be some scoop shovels in there. Yeah, that looks like there's a full halo going around the sun, even though they're not saying it's a halo. There's more there than what they're saying. There may be a higher point there. That's what you want to look at. Now, weather-wise, warning. If you have anybody on the East Coast, Gulf Coast, we have a disturbance. It is predicted to move right along here, hit the Lesser Antilles. Right now, they're thinking it might get sheared off by a weather system coming out of the United States and get pushed off into a fish storm. If things don't go like they plan, and like I like to say, men like to plan, Mother Nature just sits and laughs at them because she gets the final say over everything, and she likes to make fools out of men. So say this does not get sheared off, it continues its pattern through the Lesser Antilles up into this area and tries to make landfall in the United States. And it does not get sheared off like they're predicting. It stays in warm waters. If it is timed right, and it does get hit with a big solar storm, it can intensify it, just like it did Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian was a 3. Everybody was saying it's not going to be a big deal. It's a Category 3. It's going to go here. Overnight, we had a huge solar storm, was a KP7. They saw auroras as far south as Des Moines, Iowa, which is pretty far down. And it blew up to a Category 5 and changed its trajectory and made landfall where they didn't think it would. We are at a really risky time coming into this, depending on how fast that invest is moving, depending on when it hits, where it hits, and if our weather doesn't get cut off in the United States, to whether this is going to go as they plan. But anyone living in the Gulf Coast, along the East Coast, in Florida, you should make sure you have a go bag ready to go. You should not only be watching weather, you should be watching space weather this week. Because by next weekend, it could have altered everything. This has a week to go. And by that week, depending on the wind speed that this is moving forward, it could be in striking distance of the United States or United States territories, and it will be when the big ones are predicted to hit. So, eyeballs open. If you have somebody living down in the south along the coastlines, you want to warn them. Be watching your weather, but also be watching your space weather. And be ready to go. Be ready to plan to go if you need to go. Because if this gets hit like Hurricane Ian did, it can blow up overnight and be a monster. With no warning. It didn't take long, matter of hours, for Hurricane Ian to turn into a monster. So, our satellite, we have a small system moving through tonight and tomorrow. This will all be gone. Word to the wise. UP, we have a storm system that's going to be, this storm system is going to be pushing over the UP and out of our way. Lower Michigan is better. Word to the wise. For those of you that do not know this, Mackinac is a notorious for being foggy. We are at a point, our air temperatures are sinking lower than our land and water temperatures, and it is going to create fog. We have fog potential in Mackinac. Do not go to Mackinac. You want to stay further south. Charlevoix, Alpena, and below. And Alpena and the east side of the state may be cloudier than the west side of the state. We have wonderful places in places like Ludington, Manistee, out east of Grand Rapids, and get in group. Ask where are some good places. We've got some good places along the Thumb and some parks lower down by Detroit that may get a good view. Get into groups and ask where to go. Get on the Michigan Tourism Board. There's a website that's dedicated nothing but dark sky parks in Michigan. And there isn't just Mackinac and the Pictured Rocks. There's Sleeping Bear. There's Thompson. Oh, I forget the name of it. It's over on the East Coast. Thompson something. And there's several of them farther down. But there's state dark sky parks as well as federal dark sky parks, as well as the internationally recognized Mackinac Dark Sky Park. So there's lots of places to go other than running to Mackinac, because it's not going to be a good place to be. So you want to start investigating. Another word to the wise: do not go to Glen Haven. Too many people run to Glen Haven. It gets too crowded. You will have a terrible time. You want to go to Good Harbor. You want to take a trip over to Esh Beach Road and walk into the beach on Esh Road. You want to go to Platte River Mouth off Michigan Avenue and go to Platte River Mouth. Don't run for Point Betsy all the time. Don't run for Glen Haven all the time. And do not, for God's sakes, run to Day Barn. I'm putting a notice out there. That barn owner, it is privately owned. That barn owner does not like it photographed. He gets really mad when people sell photographs of his barn. Please be considerate, respect his privacy, and don't do it. Plus, it makes a terrible mess when we have so many people parking on both sides of the road. They create a hazard there. So if you're going to Day Barn, park on one side of the road that you're going to. Do not park on the opposite side of the road, and do not cross the road. You can also hit Glen Lake Narrows. You can, let's see, some other spots. There are some spots up Woolsey Airport. You can go up to, there's some spots down along the beach. It's a little bit rocky. You have to be very careful and use flashlights so you don't turn an ankle. But Grand Traverse Lighthouse, if you go out along the beaches on Grand Traverse Lighthouse, is a wonderful dark place to go. And you can get beautiful auroras if you walk out on the beach, out on Grand Traverse Lighthouse. So there are other places and other beaches to go to. You just have to look for them. There is a Manistee group that lists the Manistee groups, and I can't remember the name of the group, but there is a group for Manistee that has all the Manistee places to go. That is a beautiful spot to go. I do know one of them is right by the Coast Guard station on the northern shore of the on the opposite side as the lighthouse, or on the same side as the lighthouse. So if you go right up by the lighthouse, there's actually a little pavilion there that you can sit under. They have benches there that you can sit under and be right out on the beach right there. It's a beautiful spot. But there's other places along there that provide good places to be. Like I said, get in groups, ask. We do have smoke down over us right now. As this pressure system builds in toward the Great Lakes, and as this weather system that we're getting tonight moves away, I look for that to take out the smoke and there to be less smoke by the 22nd. So, be smart, be safe, use your head. Because everybody's going to be out hunting this week. Everybody's going to go crazy. And if we get the MLive curse, it's going to be even worse. It is a good idea to go to Menards or a lumber yard and get a reflective vest. These reflective vests have huge pockets. They're great for dropping in camera lenses, extra batteries, keys, whatever you might need to carry with you. But best of all, they have reflective taping. Now I am going to leave you there. I got a phone call I got to take.